What's going on, Soul Masters? We are talking about skills on cards and other keywords in episode 3. So we wanted to talk about this stuff first before we get into combat and otherwise the stack, because there's a lot of times where this information is going to come up. So it's good to talk about it now before it gets to the point where we really go in depth. So starting with card skill types, these are basically identifiers of specific keywords that function in different ways. So just trying to identify them helps you understand what they do. Keyword skills are basically just a shorthand for commonly used rules. They can be static, activated, or triggered, depending on the keyword. They're just ways to shorthand a rule or otherwise a ability, skill, to just shorten it. Static skills are always active if the card is in the correct zone. This effect is continuous, it's not a triggered or activated effect. Some examples of these would be something like a hex. Activated skills, you may activate them by paying their cost. They are typically once per turn and usually indicated by a colon. Which, an example of this would be Ferocity on Keshi, where you get to buff all your Crimson Shadow Clan units. Triggered skills, you may trigger them when a specific event occurs. It can include an activation cost to resolve the effect. Common words used are when, whenever, and at. Any trigger without a colon or may must be resolved if able, Duelist for example. The format of the card is usually trigger, condition, then effect. An example of this is within Satin or the Assassin Guild, where many of them have the keyword Thirst, which is whenever you attack, you may discard a resource and then gain +1 on the attack. Moving to all the different card skills that you're actually going to see, we're going to try to explain a little bit extra detail onto them, more than just the effects itself. Trample. When attacking, if you KO a unit, deal 1 damage to the enemy commander. Now, if the enemy commander has something like armor, they do prevent this damage for each instance of damage. Now, you can still defend this damage through normal means with shields as well, so be aware of that. Shock. Unit affected does not ready during their next turn. Now, if it is not rested, then this mostly doesn't matter. But if it is rested, it means it does not ready or untap during the next turn. Piercing. When you attack, the attack ignores 1 of the shield energy that is pitched to be able to block. So basically just look at it as my attack minus your shields minus 1 of that value. Taunt. This unit must be attacked if rested. Now, Taunt does not work similar to like Marauding Captain, if you remember, from Yu-Gi-Oh!, where if you have 2 of them on the field, you can't actually attack either because mechanics. No, in this game, Taunt just basically means if you have to declare an attack, you have to attack 1 of these with Taunt. Haste allows you to attack the turn it is played, or use rest effects. Haste is not needed to use a unit as a part of playing another card as a cost, as there's a few cards in the game like Flash for Ragnar that allow you to tap a unit to add its power to an attack, for example. Moving on to some more complicated skills, we have Null, which places a unit face down and it becomes untargetable by card effects. It remains in its rested or readied state regardless of if the untap step occurs, it stays there as that state. And it still does occupy the zone, it just, for lack of a better way to put it, doesn't exist. The Null state ends when specified by the effect that applied it. Sacrifice means you are voluntarily sending a card from your play area to the discard pile through the resolution of an effect. It is distinct from KO as it does not trigger KO-related skill effects. Sacrifice action occurs during the resolution or activation of card effects and is only allowed if valid targets exist or if required by a game effect. An example of also a sacrifice effect would be failing to pay an upkeep cost, so like Zephyr. Reforge is when a reserve card in play activates a skill with Reforge and is returned to the reserve deck. Currently, the only instance of this is Satin's Bow, but expect to see some more in the future. Now we have Brawler. When attacking, you must pay this cost to add the effect. Typically, this is adding damage to your attack. Now, if you cannot meet the entire resolution of the effect, you do not get the power gain. Example would be Tiberius that has Brawler, put the top 5 cards of your discard on the bottom of your deck. If you do not have 5 cards to put from your discard, you do not gain that additional damage added to your attack. Same thing goes with Duelist, where when you're attacking, return the top card of your discard to the bottom of the deck. Add the shield energy value on the card to your attack value, as well as triggering some other effects that may trigger through Duelist, but you must have a card in discard to resolve this effect. It is a forced trigger. So if you have nothing in your discard, You just don't resolve the effect, you get 0. And unfortunately, if there are any other effects that trigger, like Scabbard, you also do not get the ability to activate those. Riposte deals damage in combat while being attacked. Think normal combat damage with Magic the Gathering. This damage cannot be increased through normal means, as it is not specifically an instance of combat. It is a little bit different. You can, however, increase it through instances like Duelist, which usually gets specified that it does trigger on Riposte, an instance of card overriding the rules. Burned. When this unit is KO'd, deal 1 damage to the opposing commander. Multiple burn effects of the same unit don't stack. It is unaffected by modifications unless stated otherwise. Cards like the Battlefield that do modify this effect in a way that says if they have burn 1, instead they have burn 2. So that is an instance of being able to up the damage to that. Just like normal with the trample damage, burn does in fact allow you to mitigate the effect through armor or otherwise energy shield. Heavy. This unit can be attacked if ready. If rested, it's still normal and it's able to be attacked as normal. Counterpunch. When attacked, discard a resource and deal 1 damage to the enemy commander. This occurs after the attack triggers are put onto the stack. You get to put yours on, and it's last in, first out. So this will be the first thing on the stack when you proceed to the pre-defender step. Banding. When attacking, if another unit with the same faction subtype has already declared an attack this turn, this unit gains the banding effect. It's pretty straightforward. It's just looking for, have you attacked before? Is it a faction subtype? Gain effect. Hothead. It is basically just must attack each turn if able. There's not really too much going on with it. You have to attack each turn stable. It does not mean you have to attack immediately or as the first instance of attacking, but you must attack with it by the end of the turn if able. Next is weakness. When this unit attacks, give a unit -1 health for this turn. It can be a different unit than your attack target. This does not trigger a KO ability for your card. Scout. You can attack ready stealth units. Pretty straightforward. Initiative. Pretty straightforward as well. Can attack ready units. Of note, this does not get past taunt if they do have it. Stealth. This unit ignores defender and taunt. Break. This unit ignores defender and taunt from units with a lower casting cost than it. Basically, these two just mean whenever you're attacking, defender cannot be activated onto it, and you do not have to worry about taunt at all, assuming for break you meet the condition. Resistance cannot be targeted by spells, abilities, or skills. Feats are the only exception to this rule. This does apply to your own cards. If you remember Toxin, we talked about that a little bit earlier. It's when you attack, you may discard a bleed resource and add +1 attack value to this attack. Thirst. When attacking with this unit, generate a bleed. Phase, we'll explain that in its own video later on. Unique means only one card with the same name and or type may be on the battleground. This only affects your side and not the opponent. Blink is a skill that lets a player play a card at any time they could cast an ability. For units, just think about Flash. This basically lets you just play the unit at instant speed when you have priority. Hex allows spells and abilities to stay on the battleground after they're cast. These effects can influence the game state a lot, which includes things like armor or otherwise just having something that you can use to buff attack or prevent damage. Transfer moves a resource from the resource deck to under the card. Attach moves a resource from the resource field to under the card. These both require you to actually have the resource in that zone to be able to transfer over. Trap, you rest this readied card in the energy field and sacrifice it, along with meeting any other conditions on the card to trigger that effect. Defender is when you rest this readied unit to intercept an incoming attack. What this basically does is it throws it in front of the unit and just says, hey, you're attacking this target instead. Units do not have to have haste to be able to activate this effect whenever it's been played on the turn before. Heal is when you increase your commander's or unit's health. Only the amount restored is considered the heal value. You can't heal beyond your unit's or commander's health unless stated otherwise. Priority, this effect resolves immediately when triggered before any other effect can be added to the stack. It resolves on its own and outside of the normal stack sequence. This basically means like split second. Hey, I'm going on the stack, I'm resolving, you do not interact with me until I'm done. Armor is a static skill that reduces the damage dealt to the unit or commander by that number in each instance of damage. It lasts until removed or the effect ends. Conjure is basically the ability that most commanders have that says, when attacking, generate 1 resource. An exception to this is Lamia does have it on some of her units. Arsalan is cards with this attribute that can be searched from any zone when a card effect specifies searching for it. They gain any benefit that target or enhance this attribute. Last thing we're going to talk about is searching the deck. When a player searches their deck for a card, they must reveal the chosen card to confirm it was a valid target, just to make sure that everything is good to go. They shuffle the deck unless otherwise directed by a card effect. There is a weird ruling when it comes to fail to find, so just bear with me. Fail to find ruling is you may fail if the search is optional, as in you may search your library. The search instruction is for a card with specific characteristics. Now, in these cases, even if the card is in your deck, you are not forced to reveal your deck, therefore you can legally fail to find. I appreciate you joining me, Soul Masters, and we'll conclude this episode with a thank you that all the support you've given to all these episodes so far. Just keep joining us. We're going to start talking about the combat and the stack, which is going to be a lot of explanation. Appreciate you joining us, and watch out for more.